Hello everyone, this is my Booktube. I'm Manuel Padilla, and today I'm going to talk about The Lord of Flies by William Golding. In this Booktube I will be talking very briefly about the plot of the story, and then I will start talking about the characters and what they all represent throughout the storyline. This story is about a group of British boys who, fleeing the Second World War, escape on a plane to another country. But that plane crashes down on a desert island, leaving them to create their own civilization and society in order for their survival. The characters of the story all are very complex because they all represent a very important aspect of society. For example, some represent the aspect of science, some civilization, savagery, etc. The protagonist of the story is Ralph. Ralph is the athletic, charismatic protagonist of this story. He represents civilization and order in society and portrays this through his tribe and the progression of the story. Ralph, contrary to other boys, focuses more on survival and fights his savage instincts, so he builds huts on fires, hoping to be rescued. Because of this, Ralph's authority and power over the rest of the boys is secured during the first part of the story. Furthermore, Ralph is a dynamic character. This means that he changes and progresses as the storyline goes on. In his case, at first he is very civilized and tries to remain as calm as possible, but more towards the end of the story he eventually gives in and ends up even participating in the death and assassination of a friend of his. The antagonist of this story is Jack. Jack is the representative of power, ego, savagery, and violence throughout the story. In this, he is a dynamic character too, as he progresses as the story goes through. At first, he is a very calm boy, and he even is said to have been the leader of the choir in his school, and now he has become a very savage and sadistic boy. Moreover, Jack is egotistical and strong-willed, and desires power over all things. As the story progresses and the kids get more savage, Jack develops the need to rule and lead them all. Now I will talk about the secondary characters who are also very important to the story. Simon is the only naturally good character in the story. He isn't driven by power or bloodlust, but instead he's just good to everyone in general. He's a giant sensitive boy in the group, and he's the only character whose morals don't seem to be imposed by society, but instead he has chosen them for himself. Piggy is Ralph's lieutenant. He's the guy that represents science and logic in the group. He's the guy that Ralph meets right after the plane crash on the island and remains his most loyal friend through all of the story. Furthermore, he is portrayed as the less physically adapted of the group because of his weight, bad eyesight, and asthma, but he's also one of the smartest and most innovative guys in the story. Roger instead is Jack's lieutenant. He's the most evil and sadistic person in this story. He is represented as a terrible terrorist and a very bad person. At one point, Samneric, a very secondary character, tells Ralph, "You don't know Roger, he is terror," which is a very important quote, or a very interesting quote about his character. Then, the Lord of the Flies is physically represented as the head of the pig that Jack's crew or Jack's tribe gives to the beast, but metaphorically it represents the primal instinct that take over Jack's tribe in general.